Hey, and welcome to Unique Minds of the Okanagan. I'm sitting here with Stephanie Horman, and we're actually going to be talking and discussing some of her book. So, Steph, do you want to take it away?
Yes, okay. I'm so excited to be on here and actually seeing humans in real life again. It's so exciting. Yes, so at the beginning of the pandemic, my sister and I started writing a children's book series called Darlie's Adventures, and I'm just really excited to share them and tell you about them.
So, what got you initially started and invested in writing a children's book?
So the concept came, we lost our mom 4 years ago. And this is kind of the way that my sister and I honored her. So her name was Darlene, and Darlie is the main character. So it's her name blended in with her three granddaughters' names. And this was a way for her to continue to adventure with her granddaughters, even though she's not here. So it was, yeah, just a beautiful way to honor her.
Nice personal aspect to it, yeah. I was going to say, I absolutely love the artwork on this.
Thank you. So this
I love the
is
colors.
my talented sister. So all of them have a unique color palette of two colors done in watercolor. And it carries through the entire story. So she's incredibly talented, and that was all due to her. But yeah, I absolutely love these because she goes on all these different adventures through her imagination. When people review them, they said it was for the pandemic times because that was kind of what children had to do, even though they were created before the pandemic started. But I love them. They are all different adventures, different places. Dear Grandma is a letter to a grandparent. This was kind of my way of going through the loss of my mom, but it's a beautiful story written to grandparents who don't live close to you or who maybe were in isolation over the pandemic. So that's one of my favorites too.
Yeah, no, that's so awesome. Did you have any similar influences as to like what kind of books did you read when you were growing up?
So I was a big fan of Shel Silverstein.
Okay.
I think lots of kids my age were. And when my mom was sick, we read a lot of his poems to her in the hospital. And so it has kind of the inspiration with the pen and ink to it. And all of them rhyme, which I love. And they're not too long. So for any parent who's trying to put their kid to bed, I'm a parent that tries to put my kid to bed and doesn't want it to drag on. So I love that they're nice and short too, and fun and creative.
So walk us through essentially like I have personally not written a book before. What was it like essentially like starting to write a book in that sense for you?
So when my sister and I said, you know what, let's write a book together, because she's always wanted to illustrate a book and I've always wanted to write a book. We were like, well, we kind of have both sides. Let's put something together. And so I actually went to my daughter, who was, she would have been 4 at the time, and I said, okay, Avery, if you wanted a children's book, where would someone go? Like, what would be the adventure? And she laughed. She was like, I would go nowhere. And she laughed and ran away. And I was like, well, that does not help me at all. But it actually
It nowhere can be somewhere, if that makes sense.
it ended up being the first book. It was Darlie's
Adventure-
Adventures to Nowhere.
Adventure to nowhere. I like that.
So it's her going on all of these adventures in her house,
Yeah.
and yeah, and her bed becomes a pirate ship, and the kitchen she starts skating around on. And from there, we really wanted to hone in on the fact that you don't have to go anywhere to make adventures. It all happens in your imagination.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And I think that's really the magical thing about kids, is they're able to use their imagination, and this just kickstarts that for them.
I think that is very almost similar kind of in a sense like with Tolkien and Gandalf. I think the quote's like not all those who wander are lost. So just wandering around, having an adventure in a sense. It's very cute.
Especially for kids, there's so much magic in their imagination, and I love watching my two girls play together. Now they're 5 and 7, and they can take just a cardboard box and it becomes the biggest adventure. And I love that about kids, and I love that about the fact that we're able to write that and be a part of that.
So I'm sure you've done lots of screen testing, or not screen testing, but lots of read-throughs with your daughter and stuff like that. Does she have a personal favorite right now, or does she?
Well, they both have different favorites. So this one right here is Darlie and the Dragon, and I love this one because it actually starts with a cardboard box, and then it turns into this magical adventure where she meets a dragon, and the dragon is really mean, but she realizes the dragon is just misunderstood, and they become friends. So that's one of their favorites. Yeah, it's just a great one that I absolutely love. And they're really funny. They have their favorite, and then they come up with different ideas for me. And they've become the best critique girls because they're like, you know what, Mom? This is what you need to write about next. So I have a list of like 100 different adventures that they want Darlie to go on right now. And they're like, okay, Mom, when are you going to write the next book? When is she going to do this adventure? When's she going to do that adventure?
Do you have any books right now kind of like brewing in your mind right now as to like the next step or next book you're going to write?
Yes. So we have 5 published right now. We have 3 in the process. One is part of the Darlie's Adventure that will be released in the winter time, and there's a penguin in it, so we're really excited about
What
that
color?
one.
Do you know what color you're going to go with?
It's all the creative's already done on it, so it's a light blue.
Oh, okay.
It's
Light blue. Yeah.
gorgeous. And then we have a few in our mind. I have a few that I've been writing and working on. I think Darlie will become a pirate at some
Oh, very
point.
cool.
She might be a mermaid. I don't know. My daughters keep telling me what they want Darlie to be, and then I just kind of make them come to life.
No, that's awesome. So you've only been writing books for 3 years now, since the pandemic started, essentially. What kind of direction and goals do you have for the next couple of years with your novels?
I would love to, at some point, see them in a cardboard book.
Cardboard book? Yeah.
I just think it's a really great medium for a little kid, because my little kids always chewed on the end of the books. So I'd love eventually a cardboard book of Darlie's Adventures, and I'd love to see them sold in so many different places. We have 3 amazing places that are carrying our books right now, but I don't know. My big dream is my sister and I will do a signing in New York City
That'd
one
be so
day,
fun.
and
Yeah.
I can picture it in my head. So watch next year. Maybe not next year,
year?
but that would be a really
Aim
amazing
big.
thing.
Aim big.
Yes, and just seeing Darlie come to life. My daughter yesterday asked me when Darlie was going on TV. I don't think that'll be happening anytime
never
soon.
know.
But you never know.
Some animation company may stumble upon your book and just fall absolutely in love with it, and you get a TV series and everything. That would be so cool.
Yeah, and then I can go to my daughter and say, okay, she's there now, but I think they're dreaming really big for me.
You know, when I was young, like I read like the Captain Underpants books and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and they had the flip action with the pages and stuff like that, and they turned into TV shows and movies and stuff like that, and you never know, right?
Yeah.
So fingers crossed.
Yes.
Or at least if I want to go that way. But so tell us a little more. What are some of the things that you didn't really think about when you're writing a book in that sense? So maybe like, was there issues you ran into when you were starting to do publishing? Was there like alignment with like the pages and stuff messing you up in any sort of aspect?
Yeah, books are a whole new ballgame of life. So my sister and I have no background in that. I work for a local charity. She works for the city of Okotoks. And so we were like, let's write books. Let's do this. We got this. And then we were like, holy man, there is so much that goes into it. So we had to learn how to build a website, and we had to learn how to size the pages to make sure it works.
Yeah.
And it's all the like back end costs. Where do you find someone to actually print your books? How do you get it all together? How do you spell check a book? This was the worst.
Grammar is a huge thing.
It's
yeah.
a huge thing. Neither of us are super great grammar experts. Is that a thing?
Well, and you also have to make the grammar for kids too, right?
Yeah.
Like you can't be too complex where it's like, maybe I shouldn't use that word because it's a little
Yeah.
not understanding for the average kid in that sense. But
Yeah, and the biggest thing is get a proof and read it, because we had a few come in and then we were like, okay, we're going to sell them. And there were spelling mistakes in it, and we're like, oh, it's just one of those things, right? Which is like a small mistake that probably shouldn't happen, but it does. And I don't know, I think there's just so many learning curves when it comes to making the books. And, you know, are you gonna sell them and get them printed through Amazon? Are you gonna go with small shops? Are you gonna try and go with like big corporations and get your books in there? It's all hard and it's all a learning curve, but it's so much fun. It's such a fun, creative process to go into something that you have no idea what you're doing, and you're like, I'm just gonna give it my all, and I'm just gonna try and figure it out while I'm doing it.
Well, and that sometimes it's the best way to dive in, and you learn from small mistakes and little orders and stuff. I know myself as a videographer, I'll purchase equipment and I end up not really needing certain pieces and stuff like that, and you know, it's a learning curve and different experience diving right into it in that sense. And so with your books, where do you keep them? Are they, do you have like a garage full of?
Do I have like a secret stash of books in my house?
Or do you do primarily ordering through like a warehouse and then they kind of just ship them out?
No, I like to be the person that packages them. I don't know. I like to write just a handwritten message and say thank you, because at the end of the day, there's so many books out there, and if someone wants to buy and support my sister and I want to be the person that's packaging those up. Hopefully some point people will order them enough that it's like out of my capacity, but right now there's like a little hutch in my office, and then when I get the ding on Shopify, I like run to my phone, see if it's like my dad buying the books.
No, I get that.
And then we package them up and write notes, and I call my sister right away because she lives in a different city, and I'm like, guess what, someone bought our books again. And it's like a whole thing. Like when you are supporting a small author, well, any like local business, there is literally someone happy dancing on the other end going like, oh my gosh, someone wanted what I put my heart and soul into, which is really cool. It's super nerve-wracking the first time you give a book to someone, because that is my sister's heart and soul.
Oh, for sure.
And it's just a very vulnerable thing, and I think any artist can attest to that, right? So
definitely on a certain scale. Like I myself, with my video work, I'm always so hypercritical, so hypercritical of my video edits and revisions and stuff like that. And it's like, I really hope you like it.
Yeah, it's even when you walked in and I was like, here are my books. I hope you like them enough to continue this interview. Because it's just one of those things. It is your heart and soul that you're giving to someone, and you're like, well, here you go. And if someone doesn't like it, mind you, no one has been like, I don't like it to my face, but it would be a little crushing, I think.
Yeah, the illustrations are just so beautiful. Like I don't see how anyone could not like this stuff.
Thank you. Yes, I know. My sister is beyond talented, and she always laughs because I'm like, I'm going to write something or do a picture, and actually my daughter's my biggest critic. She's like, oh, Mom, that's for Auntie Teen. That's her job. And I'm like, all right, I'll just write them then.
So working with your sister, do you preemptively just get the story and then submit it to her and be like, hey, I need this drawn. If you could give me like a nice little SketchUp or something like that, would that be a thing? Or how do you, what's your process with her?
So usually a story will just pop into my head, and then I'll spend some time working on it and tweaking it, and I'll give her the rough idea of what it is. And then I hand it to her, and I'm like, now you need to make this beautiful. And she does. She does. She makes them absolutely gorgeous. And it's so funny though, every once in a while I'm like, well, maybe we could switch this. And she's like, you write the books. I'm the artist. I'm like, all right, that's fair enough. Yeah. It's great though. It's so much fun to have that bonding time, right? And to do something together. It's, my sister and I are a 13-year age gap. There's just the two of us. And so there wasn't a lot of that bonding growing up because she was a decade difference, right? You don't have a lot in common with each other. And so it's really cool now that we have so many things that we can do together like this.
Awesome.
Yeah.
yeah, my dad's retiring this year, so it's one of those things where it's like now my dad's worked, he's been so busy, and now it's one of those times where it's like now I've got that time to build some connection with him, and like he's wanting to start his own business. So I definitely understand that aspect of like just having that new opportunity to start almost like a new relationship with your family in a sense. So that's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, no. So tell me, so Steph has her books in Indigo at the
Yes.
store here in Kelowna at the mall, correct?
Yes, I do.
So what's it like with walking into a store and seeing your books on display?
It is crazy. It's, I don't know, I still walk in because I drive past the mall every day, and so every once in a while I'll just pull in to see them and just be like, wow, this is so crazy. When we first started writing, it was, I really wanted that. I think that's every author. They're like, I want my books on a shelf somewhere. I want someone to be able to like touch them and see them and experience what I've done, right? And so I used to walk into the children's section and I'd look exactly where I wanted my books to be, and I'd close my eyes and I'd be like, Darlie is going to be there one day. And it's really cool because it is there now.
Yeah.
And the community support has been amazing. And so it's surreal. It's still really surreal. I love it.
Do you ever just walk in there and just kind of move some of the books and put them where they shouldn't be and just showcase them a little bit?
I'm not going to say if I have or haven't, but they may have been on the front table a few times without staff putting them there. Maybe once or twice, yes. I don't think you're supposed to say that, though. But yes, I have once done that. But you know what? The local bookstores are such great supporters, and lots of the time I've noticed that they're under the staff picks, or over Mother's Day we had Dear Grandma was like front and center on the Mother's Day table, which was really cool. And so I just love that they recognize that for a local artist or a small-time author, it's like it's really hard to get your books out there, and so they honor that and they put them spaces to be like, look at this artist in the Okanagan that's doing something that she's passionate about. So I've been really lucky. I've walked in and they've been on those tables quite a few times, which is awesome.
Are your books available on any other platform? Like what platforms online are they available?
So we have our own website. So if anyone wants to check it out, don't be too critical because I built the website. But that's at darliesadventures.com. They are at Lolo and Spence downtown. They are going to be in Citrus Kids on the island, which is really exciting. Yeah. So we have 3 stockists that have them right now, and I believe on Amazon you can get the originals of them still. So so those are the main places. But if you want the handwritten note from me, you go to darliesadventures.com.
darliesadventures.com. darliesadventures.com.
Darlie's Adventures.
Gotta get a jingle.
I'm working on the jingle. It's not good.
So, what else is in the future with you? Do you have any other big goals coming up in regards to any events or anything like that planned for your books?
Yeah, so one of the things that I like to do is I like to make sure that they're accessible to the community because books can be a barrier for some families. So what we did last year is we blew them up to about this big.
Okay.
And we have them in different story walks. So in Okotoks, we have Dear Grandma in a senior center, which is really cool. We have Darlie's Trip to the Moon at a preschool in Okotoks. And then we have Darlie's Adventure in the Garden at the Mamas for Mamas farm out at Helen's Acres. So families can go through, they can still experience the adventures, read the stories. There's still that bonding time without having to buy the book. It's great if you buy the book and support us, but it's really about connection. I think the really cool thing about kids' books is, especially at this level, kids can't read yet. They need that adult to read to them. And so it's building that connection between parent and child or adult and child, whoever that relationship is. And so we like to do it in all different types of ways, whether it be the books or whether you're doing a walk. We still have a few more boards available, so if anyone in the Okanagan wants them, we do have the boards available to do walks in different parts of the cities.
That's awesome.
It's just a fun way to bring more adventure into kids' lives.
Have you dove down the path in regards to like scholastic book fairs or getting your books into like elementary schools or anything like that?
Well, I actually just dropped off a set this morning at a school, which is awesome. It's my daughter's school, and she's been wanting them in the library.
Oh, that's awesome.
I think she's my
Here,
biggest
one for you,
supporter.
one for you, one for you.
I know. She asked. She asked the librarian if they could go into the school, and so she brought them there today.
Oh, that's awesome.
But yeah, I think it's hard getting your name out if you're a new author because you don't know how to do that. There's just the like, what do I do? Like, I made a book here. Like, where do you put it? You know? And so it's doing that. And then during the pandemic, there were so many barriers of just being around people or the book fairs and stuff like that. So now that things are lifting, we want to do more, but it's also figuring out what you do, where you go, how you do it, right? So as of right now, we have nothing down the pipeline. We're just trying to figure out where you go next and how you do that next step, which is pretty fun too. It's a pretty fun journey to do, and I'm grateful that I can do it with my sister because sometimes we're like, we don't know what to do. We just made something beautiful and now we want people to see it.
So when you, so with this style of book particularly, it's a very nice soft cover. Did you try any other formats and shapes and designs for your book in the sense of, not so much of like the color and like the artwork in that sense, but like with the actual like paper and quality in that sense of the book?
Yeah, so we have this in hardcover and we have it in softcover as well. Just because the price points vary by about $10, which is quite a bit for books. And then when it comes to the cardboard books, from what we found, you have to do like major bulk shipping out of China, and that's like not in our capacity right now. We will buy 2 books, sell the books, buy 3 books, sell 3 books, buy 4 books. So that's kind of like the process we go in right now. So we've tried a few different ways. We have a new one coming out that won't be in the square format. It'll be more in the like 5x7 format, just to play around with the different sizes and see what it looks like and how it feels. But we really liked these ones because it has the matte finish, and we wanted the art to be picked up the best way possible because it is done beautifully with the watercolor as well. So that's how we chose the matte finish for these ones, but we're slowly playing around with it. It's one of those, it takes time and it's a process, right?
And has your partner been supportive in regards to like your book making and any
oh my gosh,
what was
yes.
their thoughts and ideas behind you starting the business and that kind of stuff?
My husband is the biggest supporter. It's like, it's really cute. He's always like, yay, darling, go. Like our family has been fantastic through the whole thing, right? So, yeah, no, he's been supportive and like always taking pictures. He was there with me when I brought my books into Indigo, and he'd be like, okay, take a picture here. Take a picture opening the door. And as we're walking into the parking lot, he's like, my wife is gonna be in Indigo. You need to buy this book, and like to the point where it's embarrassing.
Yeah.
But
Stop.
In the best way. Yeah, stop. Keep going. Oh, stop. Yeah. So it's been amazing, the amount of support and the friends and even just the community. It's, you know, the Okanagan community is amazing. So if you're saying I'm making art or I'm doing something and I'm putting it out, people are like, how can we support you? We want to be a part of it. So it is really cool, and we're really fortunate that we live in such a supportive community as well.
Very cool, very cool. Are you part of like any organizations at all with your books in a sense? Like any, maybe that's not the greatest question to ask in that sense. Where do you really want to see your book end up? It's like, I know you said you want to do like book signings in like New York or something like that, but do you want to just go like as big as you can, or is there like a certain, like, you know, you don't want to be the next Robert Munch or anything like that? I don't know, but
I want our stories to go as far as they can possibly go. Yeah, I think adventure is something that sometimes kids are missing these days, and the imagination and just the ability to do independent play and go out and use your imagination. And I think that books are such a beautiful connection between people. And so I want like everyone to, I don't know, experience that. I think with authors, it's, yeah, you want everyone to experience your work. So as big as possible. I don't even know what that means. It'd be really cool someday to like be in London and see them.
Oh yeah, no, that'd be so.
Or
Cool.
maybe I'll just bring them and I'll like slide them on into like a bookstore in London, and I'll be like, well, this is weird. Where did you get these?
Have you dropped any of them off at like any of those like? Have you seen those like cabinets with the books and stuff, and like the
Yes.
public library books and stuff like that?
Yep. So we actually have one down the road from us.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll put a few in there sometimes. We also sign them, and sometimes I'll put them in spots in a park with a note that just says like, you can take this book. It's not like somebody's lost book, and just as a surprise. I don't know. I think there's something really cool about just having that hidden surprise, and it just builds on adventure. And so, yeah, so we do kind of put them in spots for people to discover sometimes. And yeah, you never know what kid might need that story at that point. Yeah.
No, I definitely understand that aspect. So tell me about this Sealed with a Kiss.
Okay, so this is not what it's gonna look like in that size. Okay. It's gonna look kind of more matted, but not in the square size.
So this is unpublished right now.
Yeah, this is like a hush, like don't say anything. This is one of my favorite books too. It's not part of the Darley series. Sealed with a Kiss it was really my way of going through the loss of my mom. So on her birthday, this is actually what we do every year. So this book is written as someone writing to someone that they've lost. And so they're writing about everything that they do in their life, and they miss that person. And then at the end, they take that letter and they fold it into a paper airplane, and then they send it off on the top of a mountain. And this is something that my family and I do every year on my mom's birthday. So January 2nd, we write letters to everyone that's passed away that year. And then we fold them up into paper airplanes, and then we watch them soar into the sky. And that's kind of our way of going through the process.
That's really beautiful.
Thank you. I think that people need a way of processing loss, because it's something that we're all going to go through. And it's one of those things that doesn't get talked about often, especially with kids. And it's one of those things where it's like, okay, well, we need to shelter our kids from loss. But at the end of the day, it happens. And when I lost my mom, I had to explain to a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old about loss, about why grandma wasn't there anymore, you know? And so I think by going through that and having those emotions and telling them it's okay to cry, it's okay to be upset, I think it's really important that kids know that all emotions are valid. And yeah, and that they go through that mourning, because it is going to happen no matter what. So it's kind of our way of normalizing something that we don't talk about that often with young people.
And I think it's also another great observation associated with that. And it's, some people just, you can go into such a large direction with grief and like loss, and you can bring in religion and different aspects. But I think it's one of those, it's a very nice sharing aspect when it comes to, you know, this is a personal experience of mine, like as for you in regards to the Sealed with a Kiss, with how a coping, or at least a nice way you deal with your loss. And some people don't necessarily know how to deal with loss. And I think when you share a method like that, I think that's a very nice, warm message that you're giving to someone that maybe they don't know how to deal with a loss. And this is something that maybe they may take into their own life and be able to incorporate.
Yeah, and I hope so, because I find, yeah, it's such a big thing, and people don't know how to go through it, and it's tough. And yeah, when I lost my mom, there's no handbook of like how you do, well, maybe there is now, I don't know, there might be a handbook on it, but you know, there, it's just not widely talked about. So it's, yeah, it's finding a way to go through that grieving process and then sharing different ways, because what works for me might not work for someone else, right? And so, yeah, so I really love that we have it in this form. We might keep it in a smaller form too, to have as more of a bulk for different organizations that might deal with loss a lot more. Just because it is something that I think needs to get talked about a little bit more to help people.
For very sure, very sure. With the loss in mind, so obviously you went up. What mountains did you go on to when you throw your paper airplanes?
So we normally actually go up to the Kettle Valley Trestles.
Yeah.
Yeah. We do it every January 2nd, and so it's like cold and there's snow. And I used to have a kid packed on me at some point, so we never actually made it to the Trestles. We make it to like a little out part of the Trestles. But yeah, and so that's normally where we go. We've tried a few different places, but that's been our favorite spot to go to. But I think there's just something so nurturing about being in the middle of nature too, and something so healing about it. And so yeah, I absolutely, yeah.
So you're a new author. What is some advice you can give other people who maybe want to make that jump?
Oh my gosh, the biggest thing is like just do it. I know a lot of people that they're like, I really want to write a book. I don't know where to start. And I'm like, well, first you just start writing. You know, like just start. And I know that it can be overwhelming experience. Like even when I look down here and see like 6 titles in front of me, I'm like, this looks intimidating to me. I don't even know how to get to this point. But it's because I did it step by step. I was like, okay, first I have an idea in my head, or I have a character in my head, and so I'm going to write it down and have it slowly come to life. And I'm really fortunate because I had a sister who shared the same dream and could make it look so beautiful. But I think the first thing you have to do is just start. Then it's like, okay, what do I need from there? I need, well, huge publishers aren't going to just pick me up. They have no idea who I am. And so I need to sell them myself. So how do I start a website? So then like go on Google and be like, how do you start a website? Shopify. If you're selling your books, I would go with Shopify. That's what that's like my own advice. But yeah, I think any aspiring author just needs to start writing and just do it bit by bit by bit. And it is a long process, which can be tough for us, especially I'm one of those people, I'm like, I want things done like right now. I want to see, like I wrote something, I want it to look beautiful now. It is a long process. You send your work off, it needs to get printed. Even like getting it back from the printer can be like months of waiting, but it's just starting. Just having that passion and sharing it and being vulnerable. I remember the first place we brought our books to, I was like, hi, I made books. Will you buy my books? And they were like, no, we won't. And it was crushing. I remember going home and I cried. I'm like, they don't like my books. What is wrong? And my sister was like, it's gonna happen. She's an artist. She's used to bringing her stuff out there. She's like, it sucks and it does not feel good, but it is gonna happen. And the first time we see our books on the shelf, it is gonna feel awesome. So be prepared for that like soul-crushing moment when people say, it's not for me, because it's not gonna be for everyone. But put yourself out there and do it again and again and again. Just like being here. This was horrifying at the beginning, but it's one of those things. You put yourself out there and little by little, magical things happen, which is awesome.
No, I think that's great hands-on experience in that sense of getting your feet in the water and trying it out, and that aspect of things. And I think every up and coming new author, they're gonna hit and miss a couple things, and I think that's one of those things where if you don't actually make the shot or attempt to make the shot, then you never know if you'll make it or not, right?
Absolutely.
I think that's almost with every artistic career in that sense, where it's like you just need to make it, it might not sell the first time, second time, third time, you know.
Yeah.
But at least if you feel like you're progressing and making some personal progress with your work, I think it'll take off at some point.
Yeah. And even if it doesn't work out, you're like, okay, that way doesn't work out. Let's go this way. This way didn't work out. Let's go this way. Let's like swoop, you know? It's finding the right way, because I think there's always going to be an audience or a community for anything you put out there. It's just finding it. Sometimes it's a little bit harder to find it, but it's there. And if you have the passion, keep going with it.
So I noticed in your books that you don't have a Halloween one. Would you ever consider doing a Halloween one?
Yes. We would consider like...
You don't have orange.
I know. My sister and I, she was the other day, she's like, you need like less blue themes. I was like, okay, but yes, Halloween is a great one. Halloween, we have a winter one coming out.
Yeah, with the penguins you were talking
Penguins.
about. Yeah.
Any other ideas, let us know.
Well, I don't want to, you know, make you make books in that sense. I want you to be your own person. So.
I love hearing the ideas, and I love hearing ideas from kids. My favorite is when a little kid is like, will Darlie ever go to space, which is how we started this one. And it's like, when kids give you those ideas, you're like, yeah, Darlie can go to space. Of course she can. She's using her imagination. Where else do you want her to go? So it's hearing what the community wants or what kids want to see too.
Oh, for sure. And I think like I know when I was growing up, like just going back into my what little I do remember of my childhood. When it came to books, like I would always go towards like certain like appearances of books, if that makes sense. Like I really loved I loved reading Halloween books throughout the year. I think one of my favorite Halloween books was like Halloweeny. It was like a Halloween wiener dog.
Yep.
Yeah, no, I think when it comes to definitely eye-catching graphics and stuff like that is really important for kids, that they just like the cover and stuff like that as well. Like obviously characters are really important too in that sense, but I think there's a lot of just, when it comes to kids, it just comes down to like every kid has a different kind of what they like in books in that kind of sense.
Which is
when
so
you have,
cool.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
When you have a fairly wide spectrum of styles of your books in a sense, I think that's a good opening in being able to find maybe a book that a different kid likes, just because it's got a different topic about it, right? So.
Yeah, and yeah, a different topic, a different theme. All kids like so many different things, which is amazing about kids. And they change their mind every 10 minutes, which is also very cool. It can get annoying, but very cool. And so it's just finding like so many different adventures, so many different themes, so many different topics, so that kids can pick their favorite or they can change their favorite, because it's okay to change your favorites too.
Have you thought about, I'm not saying you have to, but have you ever considered or thought about going into like a little older age bracket?
Maybe at some point.
At some point?
I do more creative writing on my own. I find I tend to write tailored to my kids' ages. And they're 7 and 5 right now, so this is kind of
just
what they're at, right? Yeah. I do have a book that I have started writing that's more tailored to them in their teenage years.
Okay.
As more of an advice piece in the poetry realm of things. But yeah, I think at this point you can never say no to anything or any experience. So yeah, at some point there might be books for all ages. Or my writing originally, before I started doing kids books, I was writing like a self-help book for adults, mostly because I needed the self-help and it was like the advice I wanted to hear for myself. And then we did this, and I was like, well, this is the right fit for where I am in my life and where we are in our journey. And so I think there's always the opportunity to grow into different niches or different age groups. It's just, it happens when it happens, right?
Well, and like I definitely can understand that the thought process of starting to write almost preemptively for your kids getting older in a sense. Even like those what are they called? The chicken soup for the soul series and stuff like that. You know, even just like certain small stories through that kind of sense. You know.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah, I really like that with books, and the one for my kids as they're older is, I think the thing is, and kind of going back to Lost, but I will not live forever. So it's really cool that there's a piece that can now get passed down from generation to generation.
You've been eternalized.
I've been eternalized in the books, or I guess that's how we tried to do it with our mom. But I think there's such a beautiful thing that, you know, we now have a physical something that can get passed down.
Has your kids shown any I know you've they've suggested like, oh, I want to see Darlene in a different shape or form or whatever in the adventures or that she's having. Have they had any kind of like they write their own stories and kind of like
Oh yeah.
run it by you?
Yeah, my daughter, because she's like, well, I want to publish a book. And I'm like, that is perfect. Let's publish. So we sit there and she comes up with storylines and we'll write them down and she draws pictures for them. And we do it all the time. They love just like creatively writing. So my oldest is right in there. I think she will be a published author at some point because she has seen the process and she's seen the excitement of when they come to fruition. So I think at some point they'll want to author them.
Yeah.
But yeah, she's pretty cute because she'll write and she'll be like, okay, now publish it. And I'm like, well, it needs a few more steps still, but
Yeah,
it'll
definitely.
come, I think.
So I was just noticing on the first page that you have the different colored balloon with the
Yep, so this is
Darlene.
always in memory of our mom, and then the balloon will always match with the color scheme of everything.
That's really pretty. I like that.
Thank you.
So, well, Steph, I think we are good for our time with our interview. I just want to say thank you for coming on to Unique Minds of the Okanagan. Once again, if there's anything else you want to touch on right before we go?
I don't think so. I hope that you guys like the books, or maybe someone wants to go experience them, or you want to do a walkthrough of one of the story walks at some point. But yeah, for any artist or author that's watching, just do whatever your passion is, and I'm excited to support you in some way someday.
And go buy one at Indigo.
Yes.
At the mall. All right. So thanks again for coming today.
Thank you so
It
much.
was a pleasure to meet with you and
Yes.
talk with you, and I learned very much about your book, and I love it. I might have to go pick one up.
Okay, perfect.
I'm Rylan Kinnan. I got Rob O'Day on the camera. See you guys next time.